Geekazine's special coverage of HP Discover 2011 is brought to you by Iolo System Mechanic. Go over and use the code Geekazine for up to 50% off System Mechanic 10. And Wirecast. Produce all your video straight from your computer right to the internet with Wirecast. Go over to geekazine.com and click on the link. Of course, Geekazine is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network over at techpodcast.com. If it's tech, then it's here. All right, continuing coverage of HP Discover, Jeffrey Powers with Geekazine and the Tech Podcast Network. You know, we've been talking about converged infrastructure for pretty much the whole week here. It's one of many different things, and a lot of people are wondering what is converged infrastructure? Why do we need it? Where do we go from here? What's the whole idea with converged infrastructure? So I got Doug Outhout here. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing great.
And he's going to basically answer the question, why do we need converged infrastructure?
Well, Jeff, that's a really good question. And it really comes down to the fact that when all the systems were being developed, 5 years ago, they're all developed in silos. So you had your servers, you had your storage, you had your networking. And when you deployed them, you picked the pieces you needed for those to deploy the right size, the right scale for the application. What that did was it gave you a system, but it's very fragile, very rigid. And when it was deployed for the worst case. So you put a lot of overhead into it, put a lot of inefficiencies built into it just to prevent it from ever going down. What we're seeing now is customers are looking to right-size their IT to support the applications in the right way. And what convergence does, it gives you the ability to scale as you need it for the applications. For example, some of the technologies we have in our virtual connect. We can reprogram the I/O, reprogram the network as the application change. We can add more bandwidth to it. We can take bandwidth away from it. Our servers, we can add more capabilities, more CPUs to a workload as you need them. With our storage, you can use thin provisioning to add storage as you need it. You don't have to put it all in up front. So the convergence and the converged infrastructure from HP allows you to buy what you need and pay for it as it grows. You don't have to buy it all siloed up front. And the other good thing is it's all managed the same way. So make it easier, simpler to manage. And that's the whole key to this, is taking down the inefficiencies, and by putting it all together, you get better management and better control of it.
I remember in the days, 5-10 years ago, as a server administrator, we would sit there and we would figure out how we could hodgepodge stuff together, how we could take the old stuff and make it kind of new again, or repurpose it for something else, and keep it going. But in some cases, that was just the wrong thing to do, because we never really had a unified system. We had a Band-Aid system. Mm-hmm. And by putting the Band-Aid system on, what you're saying is that, or not, by taking the Band-Aid off, what you're saying is that this will make it a more well-oiled machine, especially for those IT groups that are now consolidating into one group.
Correct. And the onslaught of virtualization, the acceptance of virtualization as a standard now, allows us to add resources when necessary to support application needs or to support performance needs, but also we can take those resources away when you don't need them anymore. So at end of a week, an end of a month, an end of a quarter, if you have to run your financial applications, we can bring more resources to bear, but then put them back into the resource pool when you're done with them. Unlike 5 years ago, you set aside that dedicated system to run that application for the worst case. You would never put that back in the resource pool or reuse it. Or if you did, you'd have to wipe it clean, take the OS off and everything else. With virtualization and operating environments today, I can repurpose that machine within minutes and redeploy another work on it, which we couldn't do that in the past.
Yeah, I remember doing a situation where I had a citrus farm running, and that's virtualization in its
Mm-hmm.
rawest form, but the server virtualization wasn't there as much, so I had to do a lot of interesting provisioning. Basically, I had one machine running as another virtual machine for another in case that machine decided to fail. We had some sort of crossover, so that could pick up, so that the employees could continue to work albeit at a slower pace, they would still be able to work. And that's the one thing that I like about this is now I don't have to worry about making these, once again, a Band-Aid fix to get a system working and up and running. I can actually just do the provisioning and take a little bit from one, a little bit from the other, and go from there.
It's actually even a little further than that, because that's a great example of double redundancy, right? We always used to put two systems out because you're afraid one would go down. Mm-hmm. Now with the new technologies and provisioning capabilities, if the workload goes down and it's not critical, we can reload it in less than 2 minutes. If we need to have it, we can have a snapshot of it someplace else and bring those resources online when we need them, not leave them online all the time. So you really have two options, and it makes for really inexpensive duplication of applications, really inexpensive way to reduce redundancy, because you can have the resources there or you can have a snapshot there, and depending on what your SLA is, you can bring those resources to bear in seconds or in a couple of minutes, depending on how you do it.
Yeah, that's true, and it's just amazing how we can change how the workflow on the server room goes in many different ways, and that's just an amazing way. So, are there any, for anybody that doesn't do converged infrastructure, really wants to get their feet wet on everything, is there a specific, I know there's a lot of documentation out there, but is there something specific that you would recommend that they should take a look at to kind of give them that, oh yeah, we should be doing this type approach?
Yeah, we have a good reference architecture. If you go to hp.com, go CI, there is a reference architecture for converged infrastructure, which has a number of solution blocks built into it, one for Exchange, one for SAP, one for cloud. It tells you how to put it together, it tells you how we would put it together, and it tells you the advantages of it. So it's a very simple white paper. It talks about 4 or 5 different types of workloads we support on converged infrastructure. And it's a really nice way to get in, to see how convergence comes together and helps solve those problems and helps improve efficiencies.
Any stories that you've heard of that somebody going to converged infrastructure has found it to be useful, or all of a sudden doing something that we didn't even expect?
Yeah, so I actually did a meeting this morning with Capgemini. Capgemini is a solution integrator. They actually run their SAP practice on converged infrastructure. So when one of their customers needs a new SAP instantiation, they can actually stand it up in less than a day. And usually it would take them 6 to 9 months to do an SAP instantiation before, because they had to bring the equipment in, had to load the applications, had to load all the information in. They can now do it in a day. So we get customers like Capgemini being able to bring new infrastructure for a customer online in less than a day to run their entire SAP practice. So much more efficient for them, much easier for them to do it, because they've done the cloud maps, they've done the provisioning, and they've set it all up. So when the customer's ready, they just go turn it on.
That's amazing, and I love the fact that you said within minutes. We're not talking hours, we're talking minutes on this whole process.
Right. We've seen customers, another customer, for example, is McKesson. McKesson does healthcare, they do healthcare applications. Their test and development environment, they actually bring up test and development workloads in less than 20 minutes. So they can provision a test and workload environment, download the application to be tested, and they do it in less than 20 minutes. It's phenomenal how great all this stuff works. And when they're done with the test and development, they put those servers and storage resources back in the pool for the next person.
There you go. Do you, by chance, have a Twitter account? That's the big question.
I do not.
Okay. But you're going to get one, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm holding you to that one.
Okay.
Christy got Les's Twitter up in like 5 minutes, so
I'll get Christy to do it right after this.
there you go. All right. Well, thank you very much. So if you're on the bubble on what converged infrastructure is, hopefully this has been a great insight into why you should be thinking about a system like this. And of course, if you have any questions, you can Twitter me at Geekazine, and I'll pass the information on to Doug, or we'll figure out some way, if you have any questions, to get you some answers there. We've still got a lot of great interviews. We still got 2 days great left here at HP Discover. Jeffrey Powers with Geekazine.com and the Tech Podcast Network. So stick around on your couches, stick around on your computers. We will be right back with a lot more. Thanks again, Doug.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Take care. Geekazine's special coverage of HP Discover 2011 is brought to you by Iolo System Mechanic. Go over and use the code Geekazine for up to 50% off System Mechanic 10.
and Wirecast. Produce all your video straight from your computer right to the internet with Wirecast. Go over to Geekazine.com and click on the link. Of course, Geekazine is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network over at techpodcast.com. If it's tech, then it's here.